Hi everyone, how are you doing today? So I have a pretty chunky portion of Firstborn Marines that I have to paint. And please don't get me wrong, I have absolutely nothing against Primaris Marines. Their shit! I just somehow love the Firstborn ones. And I absolutely know that nobody cares about that, but let me quickly give you an argument why. To me, the Primaris are like a McDonald's wrapped burger. Every one of them is more or less the same. Absolutely no flavor there. And of course I know that you have individual kits for individual chapters with which you can upgrade them, but still this is something that doesn't speak to me. On the other hand, the Firstborn were very individual. Each one of them, they were like walking ornaments, like big Christmas trees. Each one of them was different. And remember guys that those Christmas trees would pretty hefty wreck your ass. But getting back to the crux of the issue, no pun intended here. I have I think more or less 100 or even 150, I really have no idea at this point, Firstborn Marines to paint. And those are just the ones that I want for my Firstborn army, the Crimson Fists. I have already started with the captain and you can see the video on my channel. I think it's Alessio Koteas. I really don't know if it's pronounced correctly and sorry if I butchered it. Nevertheless, Alessio was an alpha primary paint scheme for my chapter. And the Terminators will be a beta test to see if the paints that I used were correct and if they were applicable to other Marines. The other thing is that I need to have them done really quickly. And I'm gonna use washes, metallics and the airbrush for most of the job. This time, learning from the experience from my last encounter with painting, I want to have a plan as well. This, in my calculation, should be 4 to 5 days of painting. I want them to be a pretty nice tabletop or even tabletop plus level. The one good thing for me is that I already have the models prepped and glued. They just need to be taken care of a little bit, maybe some sanding, some love, but this will be something that I will mostly do offline. The plan is, or was supposed to be, I wanted to do offline all of the sanding and prepping the day before I start painting. Day 1 should be priming and airbrushing. Day 2 should be finishing all of the base colors including the TMM and NMM if needed. Day 3 details, decals, washes and edge highlights. And day 4 all of the mistakes and then followed by day 5, so just the bases. Prepping the models included sanding them. Of course I thought I did a very good job, but during the painting I found a pretty nasty mold line on one of the hands of the Terminator. After every sanding and scraping, remember to clean the models. You can take an old toothbrush and some soapy water. I use Winsor & Newton brush cleaner. Last but not least, just to be 100% sure, I used the air from the airbrush after they dried from the brush cleaner to remove or point out anything I missed with the cotton pad. The priming and first black coat stagers are nothing new, so I won't delve much into this. Both are done from the airbrush and are standard to what I do. You can use a spray primer and then give a thin coat by brush, no problem with that. I have a lot of metal models and what I heard repeatedly lately is that spray primers are better for those kinds of miniatures. The argument was that there's a thicker layer that sticks better. Don't know about that, I would be really happy if somebody could explain this to me. The airbrush, being the wonderful tool it is, gave me the opportunity to spray paint all 5 models in matters of minutes. Maybe it took half an hour for all of them. The other thing is, when I was doing the captain, I was just doing it by brush, layering, wet blending, glazing. I used mixes of colors between the 3 paints to make it smoother. Here I have no such need. All looks funky, fresh and smooth. After the base layers and highlights were done, I saw that I oversprayed them with Kantor blue and lost the shadows. Nothing to worry here. If you paint by brush, you can probably glaze in some shadows, and if you have an airbrush, it is even easier. Just look at the model under a lamp and the places totally dark should get some dark paint. I used a muted grey ink that is only muted grey in name because it is a dark violet one. So far everything seemed perfect. I was on schedule and the next thing I wanted to do is to give them some colors for the details. If I would for example get bored with them, this would mean that they are playable. What was the rule here? Please remind me. Minimum 3 colors on a model? I didn't have the time nor the will to make an NMM on 5 models, so I opted for Metalic, TMM, Gold and Silver. Of course, I changed my mind along the way for some details, but this saved me a day or 2. I'm not a big fan of metallic paints, but there is no way if you want to have your models battle ready or tabletop in time that makes other sense. The one mistake I made, which cost me a lot of time here, is giving some of the parts that were not painted with metallic paint an all-out Nuln Oil Wash. Seldomly I use washes. I am not proficient with them. The result were pretty severe coffee stains on some spots that, even though it was not a glossy wash, were very glossy and they stood out on the models. Of course, this produced some extra work to cover them. In the future I will go with my initial plan to use oil washes and wash the excess off. I was at this point 1 day behind schedule, but at least I wanted to have my main man ready. So let's call him Sergant Spejson. He even looks a bit like him. So for the next day I focused just on this model to make me feel good and to have something done. He got his face painted, all of the details highlighted, and the worst part of course, which was doing the edge highlights. Sweet baby Jesus, I spent later just 1 afternoon on highlighting the rest of them. I really can't imagine doing the same for 40 tactical marines, and this will be a project coming in some time. As he was the main character and the only one with a sword, I decided to give it an NMM look. Nothing fancy, not much blending, just grey colors and some quick wet blending work. It worked out really nice in the end. Just remember that if you paint an NMM sword, you should go from dark to very light and place the highlights in different spots and don't make them even. The rest of the work was more or less the same as with Sergant Spejson. Highlights, edge highlights, details, correcting mistakes, adding some fun bonuses, decals, doing the bases, etc, etc. I will leave you now for more or less 2 minutes without speaking, just with some of the work I was doing. And those are the models. Of course I forgot to paint some small details here and there. They also took 2 days more than I initially planned. I could also have added some scratches to hide mistakes. The decals came out shit, but altogether I think they look pretty amazing, and definitely in a larger group of models those mistakes will not be visible. I'm super happy with Sergant Spejson. He came out really good. If I would plan them, for example, for 2 weeks, probably they would look a tier better, but this is totally fine. What do you guys think? Leave a comment and have a look at them for a few seconds more. So thanks a lot guys for staying this long in the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And one thing that I would really like to thank to all of the people that subscribe to the channel. It really, and believe me, it is really overwhelming that the channel has at this point more than 800 subscribers. So once again, from the depth of my heart, thank you very much for that. The goal that I would like to reach, maybe the next goal that I would like to reach would be 1000 subscribers. So guys, feel free to leave a sub, like, share, show this content to your friends. Of course, have a look at my Patreon and my Instagram. You can also feel free to write me an email or a comment. I'll try to answer all of them. So take care guys, and see you in the next video.